written a piece that I may get published at some point, but I want to read this to you. And this, I think, will give you a picture. Okay, I'm going to describe, you want to understand the millennial generation, you want to understand the young adults, you want to understand how do we reach them better. This is a whole article, but here's some pieces that I think are going to help. As the millennial generation, our world is very convoluted. Everything is relative. There are few absolutes, and of those that do exist, many are morphed from their original intent. We've been raised on crumbling bedrock of diluted and recreated truths. It would not be surprising if we have the most discombobulated worldview since the fall of the Roman Empire. Our worldview is defined by the images on the TV screens and by our peers. We've not been raised with a reliance on God, but have been conditioned that humanism is sufficient. The terms like honor, goodness, integrity, morality, and character are antiquated and not understood. We are wandering and very lost. Nothing is simple in our lives. Many of us have grown up in homes that find us to be inconveniences or something to be controlled and scheduled. Our schools treat us as numbers. Our communities and neighborhoods oftentimes find us a bundle of irresponsible attitude and therefore a problem to be solved. We have little comprehension of time, generations, or the fruitfulness of understanding history. We are raised among generations that don't talk about their experiences, observations, or reflections. We kind of remember when abortion was a rarity, divorce a scandal, and Playboy a naughty word. We kind of remember that. But our lives are void of those who take the regular moments to tell us stories and lessons learned, teach us the truths that need remembering, or to ask us questions and listen to discover our hidden potential. We also are confused by the principle that sacrifice leads to reward, and we do not fully understand the military's role in our lives. The fact that freedom is not free, that evil must be fought, and defense must be a priority is lost on us. We're taught to experiment with everything and everyone without limit, hardly looking toward the consequences. We've watched old systems fail, not only for ourselves, but for our communities, marriages, peer groups, political parties, education institutions, and foster care, prison, or government programs. Our trust is hesitant and temporary. Our walls of defense are high, and unconditional faithfulness, while desired, is more so not realistically expected. Education? You're frustrated with the education system? Education to us is a social club, not an institution worth serious pursuit. Thoughts of content and substance aren't necessary. We can use acronyms and tweets to communicate the messages we want to get across, so why use the art of conversation? Technology is equivalent to oxygen. Our self-expression comes in many different forms. We are not taught to live with long-term mindsets. Life for us is in the here and now. Patience is not a virtue. As a microwave generation, anything more than 30 seconds is too long. We're spoon-fed philosophies by professors, while intentional critical thinking is not encouraged. We expect things to be given to us, relishing more in the life of careless beach babes than ambitious scholars or entrepreneurs. The idea of hard work seems an inconvenience, and there is no comprehension of running out thanks to parents' generosity, credit cards, and the government's enabling means. And this is a key point. The commercials and talking heads tell us we are the answer. We can take over the world, solve issues of poverty and mass hunger, find homes for abused animals, and make the planet sustainable. The challenge to save the day quickens our spirits for purpose, but what we are not told is that their prediction rests on humanism. I am grieved at the fact that my generation cares more about those in another country than they do about those in their backyard. And I am ashamed at their unabashed attempt to demonize America. My peers are so painfully blinded by what's not true that when an accurate account of history is put before them, it is blasphemed. We've been dumbed down, deceived and duped. We're medicated, wounded, manipulated, predefined, alone, distracted, broken, hopeless, and lost. We need help, but the help we need does not include giving us life on a silver platter. We do not need to be coerced into action or coddled for fear of discomfort. We don't need unfettered permission. We need someone to listen to us. We need to feel safe and accepted. We need help getting out of our cultural, ancestral, and peer groupthink. Those with liberal agendas use bold and voracious attempts to claim our minds, hearts, spirits, and souls. They might be winning the airwaves, and this is your point of encouragement. They might be winning the airwaves, our attention, and the conversation, but they are not winning our spirits. Deep down inside, we know that something is still amiss. There's another encouragement. There are still a small few of us as millennials who want to serve as translators of free worlds. This is you want to know why we're not involved? We appreciate the past, a few of us. We recognize the danger of the society we're living in today and yearn to turn things around for tomorrow's history books. We have one hand gripping on the truth of yesteryear, trying in the midst of this whirlwind of a culture to understand the truth of today. And with the energy that is left, attempting to plant seeds for the future while hunkered down fighting for our lives, and sometimes it feels like we're losing, and this is the final part. If leaders took time to help us process all of the aforementioned, understand our culture, determine how to translate the never-changing absolute truth standards into language we understand, they might find the next American greats. The future George Washington Carvers, Ben Franklins, Harriet Tubmans, and Abigail Adams are diamonds in the rough waiting to be discovered. That is a picture of the Millennial Generation. So now that you have some idea of who we are, now becomes the question of, okay, what now? What's the next step, Amy? How do we redeem this? You need to understand our culture is one thing. And I shared this example at dinner tonight. If you decided tomorrow to go to China, you packed your bags and you took off for China, and you were determined that you were going to be the next great American leader in China, you stepped off the boat and you started going up to these Chinese individuals and you said, "Follow me." Now, mindful, you know nothing about Chinese culture. You don't know their language. You don't know how to dress. You don't know what their cultural, little innuendos are. You know nothing about China. You've read a few things on like CNN and BBC, and you think, oh, well, I know my experience, therefore I can be an expert for them. If you are in that predicament, does it make sense that the Chinese are not going to want to follow you? But if you decide, I'm going to go to China, but I'm going to learn their culture, their language, I'm going to learn the hot spots, where they like to eat, what their food is like. I'm going to find things that I can talk about with them. I'm going to find something that I enjoy so that I can have in common. What if you prepared yourself? You went in and you gave it time. And after they found out, oh my goodness, this person from America understands at least a little bit of my culture, is respectful of my culture, maybe I'll listen to this person. And then you have an American that becomes a leader. This is your analogy for reaching the next generation. So for the leaders that look at whether it's our kids' friends or the neighborhood kids or the college students that your grandkids go to school with, for you to look at them and say, if I just give them one article, if I invite them to one event, maybe they will follow. No, because you have to take our context, plus once you understand our culture, and what matters to us, maybe plus relationships with you, maybe we'll follow. But for you to expect the fruit before anything else has been planted or prepared, it's not going to happen. Okay. Patty, how am I doing on time? Okay. Here are a couple things. Okay, number one, and you guys, some of these are going to be bullet points, but you can go home and maybe start doing some research and try to convince Greg with me to start a blog so you guys can kind of get inside. Okay, number one, first of all, you need to embrace the mission of of obtaining strategic intel. Imagine that you're now CIA. You're going into forbidden territory. You need to go get messages out so that you know better how to carry out your operation. Do this on the down low and start researching. Here's some of the things you want to find out. 1, how does their brain process? How does their brain think? What is it that makes it click? And we were talking about, Greg mentioned this earlier, but I've thought it before too. This is my world at work, my ideal work, and I'm working in the office most of the time, is that I have a computer, this is my latest favorite thing, computer and a laptop. And I go between a couple, 3 different windows here, and then I jump over here and I do a couple other things. I might post some stuff to Facebook, and then I'm sending an email, and then I go back over here and I update my to-do list, and then I've got my boss buzzing me, and then I've got my sister texting me. That's our world. We're juggling a lot. We're juggling many things at once. So, you need to understand the brain. Here's some notes for you. Narratives. You could communicate with us in narratives. You could communicate a point, Patty, to my little sister who's 20 by telling your story. By tears in your eyes may make a stronger point to her than handing an article. Sound bites. Our attention is very short. Give us sound bites. You want to make a point? Drop a sound bite. You want to just drop a sound bite. I don't know what else to say. You know, I mean, you have Barack Obama, hope and change, hope and change, hope and change. It has a ring to it. It's something they could grasp onto. But a sound bite, instead of saying, taxes are wrong for this reason, et cetera, and I remember when, et cetera, say, have you looked at your check stub lately to see how much taxes have increased? You've asked a question, you've made a point, sound bite, it gets their attention. Provide sources to your facts. So when you make a point or you share some information, provide, and this was something I think you had agreed with earlier, that we don't want just like facts thrown at us. Because sadly, as our parents and grandparents, this is really sad, especially parents, I would say, you still have to build up credibility with us. Just because mom and dad say it, it's really sad. So the more outside sources you can give us, the better, but not just any source. You need to find out what sources do we find credible, but what are sources, okay, so I'm going to take husband and wife, your scenario. So that's okay. So let's say your kids, for example, pay attention a lot to Hollywood, movie stars. That's where they get their sound bites there. Okay, so you identify that's the population they see as credible. So do your research. Find out who are some pop stars, some Hollywood people that are speaking up for conservative causes. Identify them. So, for example, I mean, I'm drawing a blank on, I'll say Ted Nugent. That's the best. Okay. So, and that's a bad example, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, so here's someone who's identified in the main media. Your kids probably know who he is. They may not know much about it, but he has stardom to him. And you see that you trust overall, like his foundational conservative philosophy. So find a way to bring him into the conversation. If Hollywood is their lingo, if that's who they go to, find someone that you respect that you can start to bring in to say, well, this is what I was reading. You like Ted Nugent, don't you? Yeah, I've been getting into his music lately. Well, I just saw that he wrote this article, such and such. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you try to make a connection between what matters to them, what their language is, what their framework is, and then adapt it to what you want to communicate.